Hello and welcome to another episode of the Transportation Exchange podcast presented by Rush Truck Centres of Canada. I'm your host, Jason Cuddy, and on today's episode, we're excited to welcome Richard Shortt, President and COO of Rush Truck Centres of Canada. Richard, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jason.
So today we wanted to dive in and kind of, go back into your history and your career path, but mainly because of where it started. I thought it was an interesting topic, as we look at getting more technicians into the industry. Your career started there. And, it's obviously branched off in something different, but we wanted to dig in, understand how you got into it, why you got into it, and, we can dive into what the future looks like for technicians going forward. So maybe we'll start with how you got into the industry.
Sure. That's great, Jason. Thanks. How did I get in the industry is, unlike a lot of the people on your podcast, they kind of fell in it by default. Well, I actually didn't. For some strange reason, I wanted to be a mechanic since I was in grade school. So, the interesting part is, I come from a family of 7, and our typical career path would be, go to post-secondary school, go to a Catholic high school, and go down that path into business or some sort of, IT or somewhere on those lines. But for some reason, I always wanted to just own a gas station. So I remember the day I was negotiating with my mother. I should have went to Neil McNeil High School, but I really wanted to go to Birch Mountain Porta because I could become a technician there. So after about an hour of negotiating with her, she finally gave up and let me go my own way. So I was pretty happy about that. So, I went to Birchmount for 2 years, and then I went to W.A. Porter for 2 years. And then I did a 2-year stint at Centennial College in an automotive business program, which really at that time, I was only going down the path because I wanted to be a technician, but there was some business that was associated with it. And much to my chagrin, it came in handy later in life. So that was a bit of an accident, I can tell you that much. So after I was done school, I did my apprenticeship at Becker Milk. And if everyone remembers, Becker Milk was on Warden Avenue. They had milk stores all over, but they had a fleet of about 100 trucks. And, I worked for them for a few years, got my apprenticeship, and then I went to work for Hendry Transport. And that at that time was one of the oldest cartage companies in Canada. And it was interesting. It was down on Peter Street. And when you talk about emerging technologies, which we might talk a bit later on it was actually in a horse barn. So they had started off like horse and buggy, and that's where the shop was. You actually worked in the barn. And then I had the opportunity, and I went to work for Peterbilt. And that's really where my management sort of / career started to take off a bit. I started there and became service manager pretty quickly and sort of moved up the ranks and opened some dealerships, pretty well ran a lot of those stores for a few years. So and then I met Kevin, and the rest sort of speaks for itself. Here I am sitting as president of the company and pretty happy where I'm sitting today.
It's a very exciting story because I think a lot of, we've been in the industry a long time, and a lot of technicians think, get a technician, you stay there for life, and you can totally do it. And it's a great career. But it's always interesting to hear the stories of, people who started and you had a passion for it too. You didn't fall into it. It's something you wanted to do. And then through opportunities and a bit of, probably some good mentorship as well, different, opportunities open up and you say yes to them, you take them, and it's neat to see where you can go with that technician background, to where you are today, as president of the company. And I think at a dealership level, it helps because you get a really good understanding of what, the guys on the floor are looking at, but also what the customers are trying to get. And you can really connect the dots and I think really relate to everyone, at that level of the company.
Yeah. Yeah. And along the way, I've met like a ton of really, really good people. Like, one of the fellows that was related to the founder of Becker's, he still leases a truck from us to this day. The people at Peterbilt, I've met them from time to time along my career. They're really nice people. And at Rush, I've met several owners of companies, service managers for companies, and trying to understand and fill their needs. As a tech on the shop floor, you just got a broken truck. But when you're in the management side of it, you also have a broken truck that's really stopping someone from creating commerce. So you really got to be on your toes to get that truck back up and running for that customer.
Yeah. And like you said, having that little bit of business definitely paid off in as you move forward. And when you look at, our dealership as a whole, obviously there's different skills tied into that because as a technician level, you're touching a whole bunch of different things. You're doing new, you're doing used, but obviously as a dealership level, even to move up within a company, you can tap into other items like sales, parts, leasing, there's a whole lot that you can move up into
Correct.
Starting at that level.
Yeah, and we look at the dealership world in itself. Like you say, Jason, there's lots of areas that you can sort of span off into. Like there's, the sales department, your podcast, for example, new truck department, our used truck department, our salespeople that go out and sell parts on the road, our lease and rental. There's all different skill sets there. But in conjunction with that, there's an IT component, a finance component, a marketing component, a human resources component. And then when we get to the technician side of it, there's all kinds of different products that they need to work on. Our Navistar product, our Kalmar shunt truck, our Isuzu, and recently our Crane Carrier, and all our trailer lines as well.
Yeah, there's. I think that's the exciting part for someone getting in. It's not just a one piece of equipment you're fixing every day. Every day it's a different challenge. It's a different product line. And I think, again, a company, our size and the different locations we have, it offers you different lifestyle choices too. If you're a city person, you can work within the city core. If you're an outdoors person and wants, different pace of life, there's dealerships. So that's something for someone getting into the industry to consider is, what kind of lifestyle do I want? And who gives me that opportunity to meet that?
No, absolutely. That's a very fair point. So I'll go back to one of my career moves was I had to actually move. So, you also need the support of your wife. My wife, Sinead, supported me quite a bit and my two kids. So I've moved a few times just for different roles to get to where I am today, not knowing this is where I'd land. But, without the support of your family, you can't really get any of this done.
True.
But having said that, like if I'm a technician and I'm a young kid right now and I like fishing and I like hunting, I'm going to Timmins for a few years.
Yes.
I'm going to go work up there and I'm just going to have some fun and I'm going to learn a lot and then I'm going to come back to Toronto if I want and maybe I'll go into truck sales or maybe I'll go into part sales. Maybe I'll go into management. A lot of our managers are technicians and have been in the business for a long time. So there's a ton of opportunity if you just look at yourself in the mirror and say, I can do this, And we're always looking for people and we're looking at people to see who the next people are. Like we're looking at who the next Richard is. Like we got to find that person. I'm 63. I'm not going to be around. So when I'm walking around and I'm talking to people, I'm always looking for the next person to take over the next person's job.
Yeah.
So there's a ton of opportunity. There
is. And, we've seen it in the industry as a whole. There's definitely a demand. But obviously as a business ourselves, we see it. And I think one thing for those, listening who are thinking of getting into the industry or just, starting to go to school, thinking of a career path, I think the biggest part they need to wrap their head around is you think a technician, you think, definitely mechanic, you think very hands-on, and it's still that for sure. But the technology is changing so fast that we're not, an old school, industry. We're high tech at this point.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like the internal combustion engine at one point has got to go away. We're just hearing it from the environmental perspective. But the technician's role has changed significantly, where back in the day, our parents didn't want us to go there because, you can't be a truck driver, you can't be a mechanic. That's dirty, dirty work. Well, today it's high tech. You're working with computers. You're working with IT, all the things that you got to connect to a vehicle, the new connection, on-command connection where they're, monitoring the truck as it's going down the road and updating it all software along the way. There's a lot of technology in our vehicles.
Yeah, it's and there's more coming, which related to at some point, these engines will be phased out completely, and it's the next generation of technicians coming on board that are going to be at the forefront of not only helping make that change, but also keeping that new technology on the road. And like you said, it's a different world. This younger generation that's grown up with computers their whole life that's a huge asset now to them because it's a large chunk of what diagnosing a truck is today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we just ordered our first electric MV, and we're going to set up our electrification station in Markham, I believe. And right now, really none of us really know anything about it. So we've all got to learn it, including myself. So we've got to get our technicians trained, and we got to go to our customers and educate our customers. And we're getting a ton of inbounds from our customers that they want to be involved in the electrification process. So there's a lot of new interesting things coming in the next few years.
Yeah, and that's just going to keep growing. I mean, obviously, the U.S. seems to be leading the way, especially in California, because that's predominantly where a lot of subsidies are, and they're pushing, the green incentive, and it's trickling down. We're starting to see it. So, like you said, we're getting it from customers as far as interest level. Maybe it's a corporate mandate. A certain percentage of fleet needs to be green or zero emission. And then at some point, Canada and the provinces will start recognizing that and throwing some incentives. And once I think those start rolling in is when the floodgates will start to open. And as you mentioned, the different product lines we have, all of those product lines have a zero emission component either available or coming very soon.
Yeah. And the cost of it is pretty high at the moment, but it's just like your home computer. No one can afford to buy a home computer, but now you can pick them up for next to nothing.
True.
So once the technology and infrastructure catches up, these vehicles are going to be on the road.
Yeah, and it's a skill set that we need to find, and those looking to get into school and look at this as a career path. I think it's an exciting one because it's something different, and they'll be the leaders of this technology as we go forward.
Yeah, and you'll end up with a lot of job security. We went through COVID, and we did pretty good keeping our people employed. And my mantra is, as long as it has rubber wheels, we're going to need people to go out there and fix them and sell them.
Yep. No, it'll still break down at some point, and you got to get it back on the road. And I think the pandemic did show that, as far as the different industries that are, you don't say, proof of anything as far as recession proof or whatever, but it definitely, of all the industries that kind of took a hit, this one definitely kept going, if not got stronger as we went.
Correct.
So it's, if you're looking at it, you said job security, there's not many careers that going into, you've pretty much got a career for life. Technician, you kind of got that lined up for you.
Yep. No, I agree.
And then we've got some other, there's other ones coming down, some alternative fuels. There's other mixes that, we might see. Again, I think it's incentive based, especially here in Canada. But, if someone's not fully into electric side, there's other different emerging technologies that they can kind of get their hands into and wrap their head around. And I think from a dealership point of view and looking to attract people and get people, we're going to be looking for people who kind of have almost an expertise or an interest in certain lanes that, the current guys on the floor don't have, because they're going to be the ones we need to kind of, acquire and get trained up on this new technology. Well, we've talked about the technicians, coming on board and, what to expect from as far as the technology and what we're looking for. Having gone through it and coming on as a technician and going through the apprentice program, any personal advice you give to those looking at this career or starting this career today?
Yeah, I think it's a great career. There's a lot of things to learn in our career. There's always a path for advancement or change. So, you can start off as an apprentice technician. You can move to a foreman. You can move to a service writer. You can move to a service manager. And then you could move to a general manager of one of our locations at one point. So you kind of got to look at it as a long-term path that you want to execute. And if you're happy staying as a technician, that's great too, because we have a lot of guys that do that. And, they're the experts and they're the go-to guys in the shop. So you can end up just being the go-to guy for all these emerging technologies that are coming out, because the younger guys are going to know more about the new technology, and they're going to probably be a lot smarter about it to teach guys like me in the future.
Right.
So I think it's a great move for someone to be in.
No, I agree. And couldn't let you go without asking. I mean, you had a passion to get into this industry as a mechanic and as a technician. Obviously, for what you do today on a day-to-day basis, you're not getting your hands involved. Do you miss it? What do you miss about it? And what are you doing to scratch that itch to kind of keep that passion inside going?
Yeah, so I do miss it a bit, but I also did quite understand that as I got older, I probably couldn't do it, like physically, and
right.
There was a lot of challenges from that perspective. But I'll still go out in the shop from time to time, and I'll ask a question or point something out to one of their techs, and they'll give me that, what are you talking about look? And then, I kind of still know a little bit about what goes on out there. And I also find that comes in handy when I'm getting dragged into an account where the customer is a little bit on the upset side. So that helps me smooth things over quite a bit. So I try and keep up to date on the peripheral as much as I can.
Right.
But it is kind of challenging. I'm 63, as I said earlier, probably retiring one day. So I have a shop I built at home, and I'm working on some old cars there.
Nice.
And that's kind of what I'm going to continue to do when I retire. So so I still like getting dirty.
Yeah, and the nice part is those cars haven't really hit the new technology yet. So
no, those cars I can fix.
There you go.
I can fix those cars.
Fair enough. Well, look, we want to thank you so much for taking the time, giving us your backstory. I think it's a great story. It's great for people looking at getting into the industry to kind of understand the different options you have as a potential career. Again, technician all day long. If you want to aspire for more or look at more opportunities, I think you've proven that the door is wide open. You can go all the way to the top. Say yes to opportunities. Challenge yourself, learn, but definitely get involved. And I think there's a new wave of technology coming that we're going to need a lot of sharp young people to come in and learn it. And I think this is a great industry for them. And I appreciate you sharing your path through the industry. Well, sorry, go ahead.
Well, thanks very much for having me on, Jason. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. Well,
thanks for all your podcasts. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
I think you're doing a wonderful job.
Thanks for coming on. It's been fun to have you. That concludes today's episode. I want to thank Richard for joining us and sharing his personal story. And we also want to let you know, if you are a technician or looking to be a technician or know anyone that is looking to join this industry, you can check out our careers.rushtruckcentres.ca and get a little bit more information there. And otherwise, to catch up on any past episodes, check us out at transportationexchangepodcast.ca. And until next time, thanks for listening.